Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to another episode of the Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd.
Thanks, Bradford. As a business and healthcare law firm, we represent clients in multiple sectors and multiple specialties.
Yes, we do.
Especially healthcare.
Yeah.
This season, our theme is Specialty Spotlight, where each episode we will visit about some of the nuances that can be found from a business and healthcare perspective in the various practice specialties.
Yeah, Michael, today's show is going to be really amazing because we're having another plastic surgeon on for this special season, but we're going to be talking about federal laws with the plastic surgeon. So this is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm so not surprised that you're geeking out about talking about federal law.
Yes.
So
my sweet spot. All right, but before we bring him on, you and I, we spent a lot of time, probably too much time, talking about sports. And when I was preparing for the show, I was reading again about college football teams and their recruitment class and predictions for the season.
You were reading about Arch Manning committing to the University of Texas.
How do I know?
Is that what we want to talk about?
I actually read a lot about that article. Yes,
well, he is from New Orleans.
Yes,
so,
he is. Yeah.
But yeah, you probably should have started a podcast on sports.
Yes, I think we could, or movies. And so for our audience back at who's listening for the first time, who don't know this, Michael is a Longhorn, while I'm a Horned Frog. Go Frogs! And if we add our law schools to the mix, you're a Red Raider, and I'm part of the Wolfpack. Well,
I'm not a Red Raider, Brad. Texas Tech is where I attended law school.
Okay.
But I'm a Longhorn. You got to pick. You
Okay.
can't be one. You can't be both.
All right. Well, and it started making me think about college mascots and nicknames that people have for college mascots and the variety types of mascots that are out there. So I thought today, before we brought in our guest, I was going to quiz you, and you cannot use Siri to help answer the questions. I mean, your assistant. I mean, whoever that assistant is.
Mm-hmm.
And you might not know all of them, but are you interested in this, going through this game?
I am hesitant, and I'm used to winning, but I'm used to Siri helping me win. So I guess so.
All right. So you didn't have a choice either way. So I'm going to name the mascot, and you're going to have to answer with the school that mascot belongs to. I'm going to start off easy so I can build up your confidence before I crush you.
Yeah, basically just like any of our partner meetings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who are the Gators?
Florida.
All right. Who are the Buckeyes?
Ohio State. I feel getting set up here.
Who are the Trojans?
USC.
Yes. And actually, there's two of them out there. Troy is also, but USC is correct answer. Who are the Midshipmen?
Navy.
Who are the Black Knights?
Army.
Good. Who are the Cavaliers?
Virginia.
All right. You're doing great. All right. This is where...
Do I win?
No. Here we go.
Oh, no.
That's the setup.
Oh, man.
Who are the Roadrunners?
Oh. Texas A&M.
No. Texas San Antonio.
Oh.
They're the Aggies. You know that. Who are the Golden Hurricanes?
Tulsa.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. This is bringing it all together here. Who are the Raging Cajuns?
Louisiana.
Louisiana who?
Do they call Louisiana State or just Louisiana?
Well, it's Louisiana Lafayette.
Lafayette. Well, that's technical.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. One of my son's friends got recruited to go play for the Raging Cajuns. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I brought in the mascot talk for different reasons. Obviously, we were into some football talk before, but today's guest is kind of interesting because, like us, he has two schools that pull to him. He is both a Longhorn,
hook 'em,
and a Tiger, where LSU Tiger that is. And so I was preparing for the day's show. I also found out that he also has a nickname. So not only is he a Longhorn and a Tiger, he has his own nickname. But let's bring him on, and then we can quiz
some
him.
disclosure on that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Our today's guest is Dr. Jonathan Kaplan. He is a board-certified plastic surgeon, originally from Alexandria, Louisiana. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I always am a little self-conscious when I pronounce anything relating
From
to
Louisiana.
Yeah. As you mentioned, UT undergrad, Hookham, LSU Med School. He completed his plastic surgery fellowship at Cleveland Clinic. He is the owner of Pacific Heights Plastic Surgery in San Francisco. Areas of focus range from facial to body cosmetic surgery, as well as non-surgical procedures. He is also a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
He's the CEO and creator of Build My Bod, now known as Build My Health, and a prolific speaker and writer. In fact, you and I have shared the stage with Jonathan at a conference in Chicago a few years ago.
That's right.
Jonathan, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Y'all got all that right. Y'all did a great job on the research.
Siri.
Yeah. So we're going to put you on the spot right away. And so these are kind of the questions that you could not have prepared for. So are you a Longhorn or are you a Tiger?
I'm a Tiger.
All right. I thought I could answer that one being a boy from Louisiana.
Yeah. 4 years at Austin, but a lifetime in Louisiana up until 2013, until my wife and I moved out here to San Francisco.
There you go. Well, that might help me with the next question, which is the follow-up. Who or how did you get the nickname Dr. Bay?
Oh, yeah. So Dr. Bay is my social media nickname. The Dr. Miami is a plastic surgeon in Miami. His CEO, Rosie Zion, she came up with the name for me because I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, that I would be Dr. Bay, but we spell it B-A-E instead of B-A-Y, just to sound a little more hip for the millennials and the Gen Zers.
That's nice.
I know. I saw that. I was like, I'm assuming it has something to do with San Francisco, but you never know.
I could have been from Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, patients come in now and they don't always know my name is Jonathan Kaplan. They think I'm Dr. Bay, and they'll call me that, and I'll just answer to it.
That means your marketing and social media is working really well.
That's better than what most people call Michael, but we can't say that without being bleeped. So that's good.
Yeah, let's keep it
family friendly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Well, that's that's cool. So obviously, Brad alluded to, we're here to talk about federal law here today, but I'd love to get a little context and part of your story and talk to us a little bit about why you started originally the app Build My Bod.
Yeah, so back when I was in Louisiana, so I finished my fellowship at the Cleveland Clinic in 2007, and I was employed by a hospital. Like we were talking about earlier before the show, the Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans in 2005 changed a lot of things in Louisiana. And one of the things is it made available a job for me in Baton Rouge because there was a big population shift from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. So Our Lady of the Lake Hospital in Baton Rouge hired me in 2007. So that I went into practice as an employee of theirs. And I noticed that patients were always calling, asking how much things cost, particularly cosmetic procedures, but also how much they were going to owe out of pocket for insurance-based services. And it's just like the two ways doctors' offices typically handle those questions about how much things cost is one, we can't tell you the price over the phone. You got to come in for a consultation, which just aggravates the hell out of the patient. And the other option is to go through all the pricing and give them all the details, which takes 10, 15 minutes. And then the patient says, oh, okay, thanks. And they hang up and you never have any idea who they are. So I figured there had to be a better way of sharing pricing information with patients. So we started out with an iPhone app called Build My Bod because it was more about aesthetics. And fast forward, we've shifted the name to Build My Health because we're dealing with medically necessary services as well as cosmetic services. But now consumers can go onto a doctor's website and use either the chat bot on their website or a price estimator on their website. The consumer can check pricing, even specific to their insurance, and find out how much something costs, but only after they put in their contact information. So the idea is it generates leads for me or for the doctor who's using it, but it gives the patient that instant access to pricing information, which they really have so much trouble finding anywhere else. So I was involved in price transparency from a very early stage. And I remember because as an employee of the hospital, it was their intellectual property. So basically back in 2010, 2011, I'm asking the hospital, hey, do y'all want to pay to help me develop this idea? Because again, it's your idea. So me talking to a hospital about price transparency in 2009, 2010, you can imagine how uninterested they were, because considering that in 2020, when these federal laws were coming out telling hospitals they were going to have to start showing pricing in 2021, they were suing like crazy trying to keep that from happening. So 10 years earlier, they definitely weren't interested. But thank God, they weren't interested, and they signed over the intellectual property to me. So very, very good ending to that story.
Yeah, and I still remember, as we talked about earlier, being on stage with you in Chicago and listening to you talk about that platform. And I was sitting next to Michael, like that's so ingenious to come up with that idea and realize a way in which to help put it out, being transparent, which is funny because you have voluntarily come on here, audience members, that we did not force him to come on here to talk about federal laws. Because generally speaking, when we have a surgeon on, a special plastic surgeon, the idea of talking about federal law is not something that excites them. And today, audience members, we're talking about the No Surprise Act. And this is something that's relatively new to the industry. As you said, it's been around a little bit longer, but it's just been being released. And you were so interested in this, you actually co-wrote an article with a senator actually from my own home state, Louisiana, and it was actually in Newsweek, and you embraced it. So maybe you can kind of share with our audience why you were excited about this bill and why you were sharing your information in Newsweek.
Well, first of all, I wasn't nervous about coming on and talking about it until you just said I should be nervous about coming on and talking about that. I volunteered to do it.
He does that to me all the time.
So the way it really started out, as far as me writing that article with U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy, who actually is the co-author of the No Surprises Act, which was implemented on January 1st. It was a bipartisan bill. U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana, Maggie Hassan, a senator from New Hampshire that's a Democrat. They wrote that act together. And my relationship with Bill Cassidy started out in med school. He was one of our professors. He's a gastroenterologist or specialist in liver diseases by training. So I met him back in med school. Fast forward to 2007, 2008, 2009, when I released the Build My Bod iPhone app for price transparency. He was a state legislator and went on to become a U.S. congressman. But anyway, he saw that I'd released that. He saw that I was in Baton Rouge. He called my office, and I'll never forget when the front desk lady came in and said, "Hey, there's at that point, he was a state legislator, like I said. She came and was like, yeah, Bill Cassidy's on the phone for you. Do you want to talk to him? I was like, yeah, I'll be happy to talk to him. And so he was always a big fan of what I was doing in price transparency back all those years ago. And so once the No Surprises Act, which was passed in December of 2020, went into effect in January 1st of 2022, this year, once that was implemented, I reached out to him about writing an article together about the No Surprises Act. And so we wrote that, and it got published in Newsweek, and I enjoyed writing that with him. But basically, the idea of the article is just to give a very succinct overview of the No Surprises Act and how it really affects almost everybody. I always refer to it as a Trojan horse of healthcare legislation because people think it just deals with surprise bills, but there's so much more packed inside of it. And I feel like it actually affects doctors and providers more than the Affordable Care Act does. I mean, this is a huge bill that kind of nobody knows about.
Yeah.
I'd love to just kind of at a high level talk about kind of what are some of the big elements to it that impact doctors and practices.
Yeah, no, I definitely at a high level, because when I first started talking about this act and doing webinars, it takes like 45 minutes to an hour to really talk about the whole thing. So I've gotten really good at being succinct. So let's first talk about who it applies to. It applies to pretty much all doctors, dentists, therapists, hospitals, and surgery centers that have to some extent comply with this. That's on the provider side. On the consumer side, it's easier to say who it doesn't apply to. It doesn't apply to people with Medicare, Medicaid, or Medi-Cal, or Indian Health Services, or the VA, because they have different surprise billing protections in place. Okay, so that's the first thing, who it affects. But as far as the major parts of the No Surprises Act, there's three main parts, and that is that it helps reduce the chance of surprise bills in emergency situations, like when you go to an ER. It helps with people getting surprise bills if they're getting out of network care. So if you go someplace and it's not in your network of your insurance plan, then this helps minimize the chance of you getting a surprise bill, but there are exceptions to it. And that's for a non-emergency situation, that second example. And then the third part of the No Surprises Act is when it protects people when they're not using insurance, or they're self-pay, or they're uninsured. And self-pay actually includes aesthetics, even though I don't think they meant for it to. But those are the three parts: emergency surprise bills, minimizing that; minimizing surprise bills in non-emergency situations, and then minimizing surprise bills when people aren't using insurance. So
good job.
3 parts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's like you actually knew about this and actually has spoken on it or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, so an element of the No Surprises Act requires that the patients receive something called a good faith estimate up front. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what does this require, and, kind of counsel you would give to a practice on how they should do a GFE.
Right. So the good faith estimate, the GFE, that is specifically for people who don't have insurance or choosing not to use their insurance. And just really quickly, why would somebody choose not to use their insurance? Because sometimes it's actually less expensive to pay for that MRI out of your pocket versus submitting it to your insurance, because if you haven't met your deductible, and then it could actually end up being more expensive. So the good faith estimate is specifically for people uninsured, choosing not to use their insurance, self-pay, and self-pay, even though it's not written to the letter of the law, self-pay includes aesthetics. And so a good faith estimate means that if you're getting a procedure that's more than 3 days away, and there's maybe multiple providers involved, like you're getting an operation at a surgery center, you're paying cash for it. There's a surgeon's fee, there's an anesthesia fee, there's an operating room fee, maybe there's a lab fee. The doctor has to give the patient a good faith estimate that includes the estimate for all of those services, not just the doctor, the surgeon themselves, but everybody involved. The patient has to receive a good faith estimate at least 3 days before that procedure is scheduled. And then also, in addition to that, the thing that the good faith estimate includes is a disclaimer that says if the patient gets a surprise bill after the fact that's more than $400 than what they expected, then they can launch a dispute against the doctor. And in that case, the doctor can either explain why, that additional bill was something that we couldn't have expected. It was like an emergency situation, or they can just say, don't worry about paying the bill. But if the doctor insist on them paying the bill and it's maybe found to be incorrect by an arbitrator, then the No Surprises Act penalty could be upwards of $10,000. So wow. That's the thing with the good faith estimate. So in addition to surgical procedures, and this is where, since we're talking about, I'm a plastic surgeon, maybe thinking about med spas, cosmetics, things that it doesn't really include. If somebody comes in for a one and done Botox or a filler, you don't have to give them a good faith estimate for that. But if they're signing up for a membership or a subscription where there's multiple sessions involved, laser hair removal, they know they're going to be coming back in the future, that does require a good faith estimate based on the way I'm reading the law. It's the same reason why a therapist, if you're going for psychology, going to a psychologist or psychiatrist, that if you're going for multiple sessions, they have to also provide you with a good faith estimate if you're paying out of pocket. So just to clarify, nothing in Congress's act or in the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services who wrote the regulations, they never mentioned aesthetics. They never mentioned cosmetics. So why am I including it? Well, because they use the word self-pay, and a lot of different organizations are saying that self-pay includes aesthetics. And so because they don't ever mention aesthetics, I have to extrapolate from what they are saying. So for example, if they use in their example regulations that if you're going into a lab to get a blood test, just a one and done walk-in blood test, you don't have to get a good faith estimate. So that's how I'm extrapolating that to the instance of Botox or fillers.
Yeah, all really good points, by the way. And I love it that you're able to explain it from your perspective, from the industry, from it being a physician, obviously, and especially there was a lot of debate. We won't go into it right now, but whether or not it does or does not apply to cosmetics. And much like you have articulated right now, because of the way it is written, we definitely think that's if you are in the cosmetic space, and based on how you explained it also, we agree with you that that's something for that even a plastic surgeon who's cash only should be considering.
Right. And one additional thing I want to mention is that CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, who wrote these regulations, they've come out with several clarifications since this bill went into effect on January 1st, several clarifications about lots of things. And they've never included or excluded aesthetics. So they've had the opportunity to clarify this, and they have chosen not to.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I guess the plastic surgery's lobby is not strong enough yet. Well, so let's take a step back, and obviously you being in transparency for so long, you have a very good vision as to what this looks like. Obviously 10 years plus ago, hospital wasn't even interested in understanding what transparency is. And as you saw, I just saw an article in another hospital fighting it still to this day. So talk about, if I'm a practitioner and this is the first time I'm hearing about this because I just didn't know about it, what are some of the challenges that I need to think about as I'm running my medical practice that I should consider?
Well, I think the first thing is that you have to be prepared for a lot of patients calling and saying, oh, I heard that I have a right to a good faith estimate. And just calling over the phone and asking for that, because already for plastic surgery, people are always calling, asking for pricing. I think the first thing people need to realize is that when somebody's calling, asking for a good faith estimate, you don't have to give them a good faith estimate. A good faith estimate is it's a very legal, specifically legal codified document. It's something that the federal government is requiring for the No Surprises Act. So when somebody's calling over the phone asking for a good faith estimate, just understand that they're just asking for an estimate. All right. So don't let your office staff get freaked out like, oh, we have to create this official document and email it to a patient we've never met. No, that's not the case. But you have to understand that patients are going to think that they have a right to an estimate. And I think it's good practice, as I've developed this platform, I think you can generate leads in the process of providing people with estimates. But the thing is that if you don't give that patient an estimate, just an idea of what something is going to cost over the phone, they're going to think you're non-compliant with the good faith estimate rule of the No Surprises Act. And so you have to worry about them calling your medical board or writing a Yelp review saying that you're non-compliant. Now, they're wrong, no question about it. You don't have to give a good faith estimate sight unseen, but it doesn't matter. It's still an annoyance that you're going to have to deal with the medical board potentially. You're going to have to deal with this review. And good luck going on and responding to that review saying, oh, well, we don't technically have to give you a good faith estimate according to the No Surprise Act and explain all those details. People are going to fall asleep before they finish reading the rest of your response. So I think that's the first thing, is that doctors just have to be more open with providing estimates. Now, that's a nuisance to have to be answering calls all day about estimates. So that's why I talk about putting a chatbot or a price estimator on your website to just make that whole process automated. Let the patient figure it out on their own. You generate a lead, you add it to their email database. At least you benefit. You're providing estimates on your terms. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it that this is really going to be a heavy lift for a lot of practices is that when somebody comes in, and I keep going to plastic surgery examples, but this really does apply to more doctors. But for within a plastic surgery practice, let's say a patient is interested in breast reconstruction. They come to that doctor to get breast reconstruction, but that doctor is outside of their network. Well, now to avoid that patient getting a surprise out-of-network bill, if the doctor wants to do that procedure out of network, which they do because they'll get reimbursed more, the doctor's office now has to, one, get the patient to sign a consent form saying that they're agreeing to give up their surprise billing protections in this non-emergency situation, and sign this document saying that they're prepared to get a surprise out-of-network bill after the fact. As long as they sign the consent, you can send a bill after the fact because it's not an emergency situation. The other thing that's a heavy lift for the doctor, though, is they have to provide the patient with a really good estimate of what their out-of-pocket expense is going to be. So you can't just say, oh, my rate that I charge for this breast reconstruction is $75,000. No, that's not good enough. You've got to find out how much they've paid towards their deductible for their out-of-network deductible, their out-of-pocket maximum for the year, what their coinsurance is. And then you have to provide them with that estimate based on what they've already paid towards those deductibles. And that's if they even have out-of-network benefits. If they don't have out-of-network benefits, then you can give them just like the big number and saying you owe all this. So that's going to be a tough job for these practices to get the consent and also to really give a good estimate to the patient. I mean, our platform helps them with that. That's obviously the lead into we can actually help them solve that problem. But again, it's the biggest problem I think is most doctors just don't even know this bill exists. Patients don't know this bill exists. The ones that do know this exists just think it applies to surprise bills when it actually applies to a lot more than that. And the people that are even aware of it just don't think it applies to them. So I think those are just those educational hurdles we're dealing with right now.
I'm curious too, we started the episode talking about the Build My Health app. When this came down, when the No Surprises Act passed, how did that impact your current processes? It sounds like it does a great job dealing with kind of this early stuff. Does it also help you with this technical good faith estimate in the process as well?
It does. The reason that we were so well prepared for the No Surprises Act is that back in 2021, which is ancient history now, there were some other laws that came out from CMS called these price transparency rules that required hospitals to show pricing on their website. So that was a precursor to the No Surprises Act. They're separate things. But we were already collecting all of this data from hospitals, getting that all loaded into our database. And so we were already preparing what's called real-time eligibility, meaning that the doctor's office could use our platform to let the patient not only know how much the procedure is going to cost, but how much they're going to owe out of pocket based on how much they spent towards the deductible and everything. So we'd already built out all that technological plumbing in our platform. So once the No Surprises Act came out, in addition to giving patients those quotes, those estimates, once they came in for a consultation, we were now able to just add in the disclaimer for the good faith estimate, add that into our platform. So again, the platform already included all of this information, the ability to provide a quote to the patient after a consultation. We were just basically inserting the verbiage that CMS requires.
That's so cool.
Really cool.
And I think in the transparency for our audience members, I think they should, before we let Jonathan roll out of here, full transparency. Right before we started this, audience members, we learned a lot about our relationship that Jonathan and I did not know. Number one, he was a few years ahead of my cousin at LSU Med School. Number two, I graduated with his cousin from high school. And then number three, he actually knows my dad, the orthopedic surgeon, and doesn't know Michael's dad, the plastic surgeon. So all the transparency I want to give to our audience about someone that we just met, we just figured all this stuff out right before the show started.
Small world magic in the podcast room.
Yes.
Well, I have to applaud you because you managed to take a topic, a federal law that many of our audience didn't know about, and do a great job.
Phenomenal job.
Making it meaningful, understandable. I mean, maybe the key is we just need to get non-lawyers to explain the law. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
I feel bad because, people are like looking at this and they're hearing about this law for the first time and they're probably overwhelmed. And, even though I try to make it as succinct as possible, you still have to learn all this new terminology, like, out of pocket, out of network deductibles, out of pocket maximums, in network, out of network. It's all very confusing. And the good faith estimate is not like the estimate you have to give the patient if they're trying to get an out of network service. So it's just all very convoluted, but you got to distill it down and you got to learn it. And, reach out to me if you have any questions, because the truth is, if they just keep listening to your podcast over and over again, it'll all start to sink in. They keep hearing the same terminology over and over again.
Well, for our audience members, we'll definitely put links for both Build My Health, and to Jonathan's website itself, so you can actually learn more about his app and who he is, so that you can reach out if you have questions on this act.
That's awesome. So what we'll do next is we'll say goodbye, Jonathan. We're really grateful for your time today. We'll go into a commercial, and then on the other side, we'll try to keep the energy up, talking a little bit of legal insights. We can't drop down into lawyer talk, Brad.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Welcome back to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto. I'm still here with my co-host, Michael Byrd. Now, Michael, we have the season and we have these special spotlights, and this is the first episode of the entire season where we had a doctor come in and the spotlight was on a law, of all things, the No Surprise Act. So, surprise audience members, we had a plastic surgeon come talk to us about a federal law.
Well, maybe we should just talk about some medicine and, how to operate on patients next. Yeah. And I can tell you, he did such a good job. I'm going to be careful to steer clear of trying to add anything to his No Surprises Act. But I will say what jumped out at me when he was talking about the expectations that he's finding that patients are carrying now that they are becoming aware of these terms like good faith estimate and So because of price transparency, they're calling on the phone and saying, "Hey, I want to know how much it's going to cost." And the observation he made that, the risk is they're going to call the medical board or they're going to go online is a ripple effect of the No Surprises Act that I had not thought of until today. And, if you get an investigation letter from the medical board, hopefully when you answer the letter, you're able to quash it and they'll see that there was not a violation. But as you and I know, sometimes Pandora's box gets opened, and even though that itself is not a violation, it's a gateway to compliance inside the rest of the practice on other things. And then if they go to social media, and we've talked about this before, you have to be super careful about how you engage or whether you engage because of HIPAA. Are they a patient or not? Are they not a patient? And there's a whole bunch of kind of ripple effect compliance issues that also flow from that.
Yeah, and I think the important part to take away is for our audience is the compliance. It's already difficult enough to running a medical practice, and this is just another piece of the compliance that you have to follow through. And probably the most simple thing that you can do is be active in how you give them that information. There is a good faith estimate that you can give to them in paper. I know that Jonathan on his website, the NoSurpriseAct.com. Surprisesact.com. That's an S in surprises. Thank you, Michael. That if you go to that website, you can actually download the information that would be required to be able to help give that information to the patients. I know for our Access Plus members, if you actually go to your portal, there we have a No Surprises Act toolkit where you can actually download the same information. But the point being is, as you're doing this, make sure that you're documenting correctly, that you're showing them that if you are giving it to them, that you're documenting it by putting it in the medical record, so that if there is something that there is a investigation, you can show that, oh no, here's the piece of paper. This is all the information that we gave them. This is consistent with the form that the federal government wanted us to use. And not only did they get it and sign it, it's in their medical records. But Michael, believe it or not, we are out of time today. Any last minute takeaways about mascots or nicknames?
That Arch Manning is going to play football for the Texas Longhorns.
Well, Michael, again, we're out of time, and so we are excited for next week where we have a specialty spotlight on scoliosis. It's a special type of spine surgery that is very unique, and we have one of the best surgeons coming in to talk to us about this, Dr. Richard Hostin. Thanks again for joining us today, and remember, if you like this episode, please subscribe, make sure to give us a 5-star rating, and share with your friends.
You can also sign up for the ByrdAdatto newsletter by going to our website at ByrdAdatto.com.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.